We get wrapped up with focusing on what we're doing versus how we're doing it.
Do you mean how? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually?
Um,
Say more. Like, what do you mean by how?
Nothing's ever been done like this, running across the US carrying a flag. Those are two big challenges in itself. Then you throw in setting a world record. You don't necessarily want a team of fast runners, strong runners. You want a team specifically, and that includes a little bit of everything. That's what's really cool about this team, about this event, is they're bringing out, and I don't even know how they did it, because as a crew chief, I've been looking at people's Stravas, looking at this from a running perspective, and some of the runners on the team have barely been setting a 10K PR, which that's a new runner type of thing. That should have been seasoned 5 or 10 years ago, but they bring a lot more to this event and to this mission than just the athleticism, if that makes any sense.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills. Episode 136 features Army veteran Roel Gonzalez. Roel is a crew chief for Team RWB's Old Glory Ultra Relay. Welcome. This is Veteran Made. Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right. Well, good afternoon from the great state of Ohio for me. Good morning from the great state of Texas. Roel Gonzalez, welcome to Veteran Made.
Hey, it's good to be here, man. Thanks.
Dude, absolutely. You're welcome. It's great to have you. Super excited to chat with you, have you on the podcast. Very excited. You have the second in the series of the runners for Team RWB's Old Glory Ultra Relay. So I'm excited to hear about last weekend and hear about how prep is going here as we're about 8 weeks out from the race. But in the meantime, if you could just give us a brief primer on who you are and where and when you served. We'll jump into Ultra and then we'll jump into the race.
Yeah. So again, thanks for having us collectively as a team on here, because that's what it's all about. And you mentioned that I'm part of the runners. I'm specifically not one of the runners right now. I'm more of the crew chief, kind of the balance optimizer, so to speak. And with the whole planning of this, they went ahead and picked 3 of us, crew chiefs, in the hopes that there'd be a security blanket for the runners if they got hurt or somebody had an emergency and had to pull out. Because this is over the span of a year that people have been training for this on, and things happen. And then the event itself will probably be a span of 20 days. So who knows what that will all entail, but we've been planning and prepping as best we can. So I specifically am the crew chief. I like to call myself the whip cracker. Crack that whip once things start getting out of line. I didn't have to do that this weekend. Like you were saying, we had a dry run rehearsal, which in my opinion, I think it came out way better than what I was expecting, and probably what a lot of the participants were expecting too.
Good. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for the clarification, and make for a great episode, because I am I'm curious to kind of hear from the crew chief angle, and the approach from, the inside, but also maybe a slightly canted angle from like just outside, right, for the actual 12 runners themselves. So yeah, we'll jump into that in a second, but just kind of tell us who you are and where and when you served, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah, so my name's Roel Gonzalez. I served in the Army from 2001 to 2013. I went back in when there was a split op version, so I went through basic training first, and then went back for my senior year of high school, and then went back through my job specific training after graduation, which then came to be 2001 September 9/11. So when I went back to my job training, it was training to go into what was the global war on terrorism at that point.
Yeah, interesting. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but what was that experience like, doing boot camp, and then doing senior year of high school, and then going back, but then obviously going back with the context that you had, obviously having enlisted before 9/11, not realizing that we'd be in sustained combat operations, but then not only do you go back from boot camp into your job training, but now it's in the context of a global war. What was that like?
It was scary nonetheless. I went in thinking I was going to be like my uncles and my grandfather at that point, they didn't face any of those conflicts in their time of service. So it switched immediately. And at that point in my life, I was young. A lot of unknowns and unprepared for what was to come. But I really think it helped shape me to the man I am today.
Very cool. Very cool. What did you do in the Army?
So I first joined as a 88 Mike transportation.
Yeah.
And then I did one deployment pretty quick into that from 04 to 05 with the Texas National Guard. And then I came back stateside and decided that, a lot of the other stuff was going on. So I wanted to, charge ahead as fast as I could. So I joined the Army, and then I reclassed to 11 Bravo.
All right. Get some.
Yeah. So it's a weird dynamic and understanding, but only a few will understand. But yeah, it was a weird transition, but somehow I'm still here today. And again, like I said, it's helped shape me into the man I am today. So I'm just grateful for all that experience.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we're glad you're still here as well. When did you get into ultra running? Did you start running in the military? Obviously, I've talked about this with Jason and Sully and JJ, right? Like running and PT and everything is a part of our lives when we're in the military, but it's a very targeted, specific part of our lives in the military because it's something you have to do, and it's something you're training, specifically for the mission to be fit to fight. Did you start taking running like more seriously at this level while you were in the military, or is that something that happened after?
Yeah, I didn't know I was attracted to it as much in my younger days before the military, and the military helped bring that out. Being around other hard-driven individuals and people that just wanted to do and be better. That really opened my eyes to at that point marathon, and then it led into what it is now. But funny story, in 2004 on my first deployment, we were operating out of a small fob, and Al-Assad Air Base was hosting a shadow run for the Daytona 500 half marathon, which was happening back stateside.
Yeah.
The commander at the time asked if people wanted to go and participate in this half marathon, and they would be able to use the PX stuff that we didn't have on our small fob. So I jumped on board, and that was my first half marathon in 04 in Al-Assad Air Base.
What was the desire to kind of get off the fob and go take advantage of some of those advantages that he was describing, or did you want to what was your mindset and heartset going into that half marathon?
Yeah, at the beginning, definitely it was you would you'd run the event and you had all the perks that came with it. You know, like they had a Burger King there. They had some updated facilities that we weren't operating on in our small fob. But during the run, we got mortared a couple of times, and it not only brought a sense of reality, but it brought a different purpose to the way I was moving. And that just spiraled into a huge snowball effect.
Listen, I was in the Air Force, so I understand. When we deployed, we got different things than the rest of you guys that were out there at FOBs and out in the elements all of the time. And it is interesting, right? It's an interesting experience when you've got your Burger Kings and your Pizza Huts and your green bean coffees and all of that. It is easy to get lulled into a sense of relative safety. You're carrying a firearm and you're prepared and you've been trained and you understand. And, I was the driver for my unit, so I had driver specific training and all these different things, but it's easy to get lulled a little bit to sleep when you're just kind of doing a job, right. On an air base, deployed to a theater of war. But yeah, then those mortars start to hit and you're like, oh, that's right, I'm here. Okay. This is happening. All right. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, that was a real it was a real wake up call. That would probably happen 3 months into our deployment. So that complacency, that boredom that you're kind of talking about, it was there. It wasn't necessarily prevalent until that kind of stuff had to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it happen during the run? Like, what did you guys have to do while you were running? Did you have to?
Yeah. I think it happened 2 or 3 times during the run, but they had these big concrete barriers, these HESCO barriers, and we just I thought still I think the first one that came in, I didn't grasp the reality of it until I was running by one of those HESCO barriers and I think I was running around what the hell am I supposed to do, right? And somebody kind of hunkered me down into the barrier with them, and that's when the reality set in, and it was like, oh shit, yeah, we're in a place of war. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one of those experiences. I was working on a jet. This is at Bagram, I think in 2010, maybe summer. Yeah, it was summer of 2010. President Obama came for a visit, kind of one of those unannounced visits, and I was working the night shift, the mid shift at the time. And so I woke up, in the early evening to go work out and get ready for my shift. And all the lights on base were off completely. And Bagram was just totally dark and totally shut down. And, there are a couple of the airplanes out there. Obviously the one that he was on was Air Force One. They've got the decoy and all that stuff. And yeah, so it's business as usual for us, right? We're just working on these jets, and I loaded bombs primarily, but also a part of our job is to, mechanically and electrically maintain the bomb racks and the missile launchers and all that stuff. So it requires us to get up into the cockpit. We have this AGE equipment, AGE, air to ground equipment, right? That you use. You don't turn the jet engines on, but you essentially turn, all the electronic warfare aspects of the jet on when you're up there in the cockpit, doing stuff. So it's loud. You've got EP on. You've got kind of all this going on, and I'm sitting up there in the cockpit, and I'm on comms with my guy on the ground. Whatever kind of checks that we were doing for the launchers and the racks, and literally all of a sudden I just see mortars flying down all around us, in between the revetments, in between those HESCO barriers that you're talking about. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm sitting in this cockpit. What do I do? Do I get out and run, or he took off, right? He did what he was supposed to do. I'm sitting there for a second. I'm like, I don't even know what to do here. So I did ultimately end up getting out of the cockpit and run into one of those bunkers that you're describing. But yeah, it's a bizarre feeling for sure.
Yeah.
So had you trained at all for marathon or half marathon when you went to that airbase to do it? Or was it I'm just going to go take advantage of this opportunity and go run?
Yeah. At that point, just being in the military and staying fit, I've always been competitive. No, not really. I was just doing stuff on my own. The whole running thing, it started back when I was probably 11 or 10. My grandparents had this tamale shed. We used to make tamales back in my grandparents' house, and the shed was probably a quarter of a mile long. And I would run. I'm talking a couple of times. I lost track after 100 times around those little sheds, and it took me outdoors. So recently, I've just been discovering that I don't even like running. It's just been what's gotten me outdoors. So I've always been attracted to that, but the training didn't really pick up until that half marathon in 2004, and then I found people were doing it not only for pleasure but competition, and then not only for competition but for pleasure, and
kind of started that cycle for you. So, I mean, did it start there, like in that race, in that half marathon, you're running that, what is it? 12 point,
yeah, the
13.
13.1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like did the bugs start to fester there? Like you're like, oh, this is cool. I want to explore this more.
uh no, honestly, not even there. It funny. So it probably that probably happened 11 or 12 years ago when I saw this one guy. I was doing a relay style race. It's called Cap to Coast, and it goes from the capital of Texas here in Austin all the way down to the coast. It's 223 miles. I did it with a relay team, which is what this Old Glory is kind of about to start doing. And when my team finished, an individual had finished by himself.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that's when it was like, okay, let me get some of that. And the next year, I tried to do it myself, and I heard of RWB, and I kind of made a call to arms and just reached out to some of the people around that time that were into running, and I attempted it. I failed. I think I only did 180 something miles, but the purpose behind that was for bring awareness to veteran suicide, which was happening at that time and still today. And the community and the support that I got from that transpired into the ultra running in itself.
What obviously I talked about this with Jason last week. That idea of attempting something really difficult and quote unquote failing, right? Like you didn't hit the 220, whatever, you just hit the 180. That's obviously not a failure either. It might technically be a failure because you didn't hit that, but like 180 something miles is quite a bit farther than most people want to run or can run. And then obviously you're doing it as a part of an event that helps raise awareness for an issue that we're seriously facing. So it's not a failure in that sense either. Like how did you reconcile it at the time? Like that quote unquote failure?
Yeah, I looked at it as a failure. I've still been discovering this recently, and that I think that's why I've attracted myself to these types of enduring events, because it's not only running. It's I did a 200-mile bike race last year. There's so many other things, but the focus, I think, is enduring something tough and difficult. And the big thing with that is, I think it's got to be. A friend of mine says it perfectly. It's an elective suffering, something that we choose ourselves, and that coherently prepares us for whatever kind of shitty day might come and makes it a little bit easier. So at the time, yeah, it was a complete failure. Now I've kind of turned it into and we have a bad perception when we come to that word failure. It's more of an opportunity. It could be an obstacle. You can put any word that you want in there, but for me, it's become a huge learning curve. It's become an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm digging for, right? Because even the way that I phrased it is the way that most people would phrase it. But then you were very quick to say, no, I looked at it for what it was, which was a failure. And now it sounds like maybe the view of it has evolved slightly. But then even the view that you're describing right now is one that I think gets inverted, right? Like it's very easy for people to say like, oh, failure is just another opportunity, right? And I'm not accusing you of saying it that way at all. I don't hear it that way in your voice. I don't see it that way in your face, but it is something, right, that like we hear, especially in our community, right? The veteran community is like all about the, the tough guys and the ultra running and the CrossFit and the tactical and like all this stuff. And there's all this rah, failures, just another opportunity. And it's like, it just then becomes this very trite thing that definitely has like nuggets of truth. But so dig a little deeper, like how has that mindset driven you to see running the way that you see running, endurance the way that you see endurance, and suffering the way that you see suffering?
Yeah. I'm real in tune with this, and the easiest way that I've kind of jotted it down was it's not the way we do what we do. It's more important than what we're actually doing, if that makes any sense. Like, yeah, I don't know how to say it any other way. It's we get wrapped up with focusing on what we're doing versus how we're doing it. And to me, that goes back to just wanting to be better, wanting to do better.
You mean how? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually?
Oh, everything, yeah.
Say more. Like, what do you mean by how?
So for instance, this nothing's ever been done like this, running across the US carrying a flag. Those are two big challenges in itself. Then you throw in setting a world record. You don't necessarily want a team of fast runners, strong runners. You want a team specifically, and that includes a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
And that's what's really cool about this team, about this event, is they're bringing out, and I don't even know how they did it, because as a crew chief, I've been looking at people's Stravas, looking at this from a running perspective, and some of the runners on the team have barely been setting a 10K PR, which that's a new runner type of thing. That should have been seasoned 5 or 10 years ago, but they bring a lot more to this event and to this mission than just the athleticism, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah. Because, JJ's quote is plastered all over our decks as we're working on the film. And it's something that we've been using as a through line for us. Is we're not looking for the 12 best runners. We're looking for the 12 best teammates. And I think back to, the hockey coach, Herb Brooks, his quote, from the movie Miracle about the 1980 U.S. Olympic men's hockey that defeated the Soviets, right? It's like, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. And again, that's something that's like easy to think about and say like, oh man, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. But like, what does it actually mean? So like, what did you mean just now when you said they're not setting their 10K PRs? It's something they should have been doing 5 years ago, but what they are bringing to this team is valuable.
Yeah. The eclecticness of everybody individually. Like there's a gentleman on here who specifically races and does these events, these high rocks, these Spartan obstacle races. And he's so passionate about that. But this whole thing brings a whole other aspect of adaptiveness, of the fluidity of going from racing fast to, well, now you got inclement weather or hills that you're about to face on this, or a lot of unforeseen things are hard to explain with events that travel more than 500 miles. Hopefully you'll see some of that while y'all are out there. And I tried to explain some of that to the team this past weekend, because they did an excellent job covering the things that we can all foresee happening. But then there's those other things like running across a pistol. Like you literally are on the road and you ran right by a pistol. Like, what do you do? Do you call some security officer? Do you tell your teammates after you've passed it?
Interesting. Yeah. So from your vantage point as a crew chief, like walk us through what your role is on the team and how you've been approaching training and working with them up to this point to work through some of these things and be prepared for the myriad things that they're going to experience.
Yeah, honestly, I've just been cheering the whole team on because again, like a lot of that stuff, it's so unexplainable until you're out on the road on how to even solve the problem. One of them this weekend was Mardi Gras parade.
Hmm.
Um, Everybody got thrown in the mix of that parade with different road closures, and the way they all approached it internally, I still haven't dissected from each team member, but there is there was some harsh moments, confusion, some anxiety, but everybody put the mission in front of their own ego. Like I don't even think there's specific egos on this because they're so focused on the mission. So a lot of the training and stuff has been, these guys and gals are natural athletes, so they've already been doing some of the stuff on their own. More of the focus has been coming from Zach Bitter. He worked out a training plan. He holds the fastest 100-mile in under like 12 hours. Um, and it's pretty interesting the way he broke it down strategically from running coaching's perspective. And I understand too the way he broke it down, which was it's totally beneficial iterating these 30-45 minute shifts, which is a whole other topic to talk about. But this is going to be a 15 to 20 day event, and it's never been done before. The amount of athletes rotating, that's a whole other dynamic. I've just been kind of reassuring these guys and gals that one, they signed up for a reason, and two, it's not coincidental that we're all here doing this for something bigger than our own internal achievements or desires.
Yeah. So how have you integrated rather building a relationship with the collective team and then building individual relationships with, because there's three teams on the one team, right? So as a crew chief, you're responsible for four of the runners. Is that correct?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, the real crew chiefs are Mike and John, the guys behind RWB, because they've still taken guidance, but they have their own. They've done this 6 or 7 other times throughout the country in a different format. But I think they have more experience than what I'm bringing. But the crewing, the understanding, and the reassuring. I think I said it in the beginning. It's just I'm more of a balance optimizer, right? Like some of these athletes are pretty fast. They got to save some of that for the back end, and that's where I'll come in and kind of reassure and just the oversight of everything collectively. And it's kind of hard to even go off of my perspective and how I think this should be approached because again, it's never been done before.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess on that note, like, how are you interfacing with JJ and Sully, like you just described, and then how are you interfacing with the other two crew chiefs? Like, what's the relationship like? What's the cadence of communication? You mentioned looking at Strabas and different things like that, but like, yeah, what's the communication relationship like?
Yeah, I don't really tell JJ or Mike that much. I'll keep it more internally because again, the runners are the ones doing this. I want to take as much from them as I'm taking from Mike and JJ. And I think a lot of their stuff is coming from the vastness of this event.
Yeah.
They pick the runners and they pick the crew chiefs for a specific reason so that they can run and crew. So I kind of keep the stuff internally with the team, and that's been working out perfectly because we saw a bit of it this weekend where Mike and JJ withheld some information, rightfully so, and it was cool talking internally with the other crew chiefs because one of them was a little concerned. He's more of a planner, strategic. It's got to go like this, and the other one was he understands the diversity of it. I think so. When it all unfolded, I said there's no better opportunity than to learn right here on these failures, which was kind of the stuff that we talked about earlier. And all 12, all 15 people that were there, it couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah, it's like a cadre situation at a schoolhouse, right? In the military, where like, there's going to be you know what you've signed up for, right? Like, what the training procedures are, what the curriculum is, right? Like, generally speaking, that you're going to go through something difficult, but then the cadre is absolutely going to have things that they've planned and then things that are unplanned that they're just going to let unfold to see how the team responds and how each individual responds.
Yeah. Yeah, we all got a taste of that this weekend. So again, that's it's really come into fruition a lot better than what I could have expected.
Yeah.
We still have those unknowns and unforeseens, but yeah, the whole team dynamic. Again, I think we all have the mission in the forefront, and that's what's driving everybody. So leading these next couple weeks is going to be super crucial, kind of monitoring and seeing how everybody's doing, because it's a roller coaster, man. So you can't dictate how the highs are when you're on your high, and the same thing when you come to these lows, because it's going to happen. So a lot of that taking a step back and, oh shit, this is really happening, grounding, right? Like taking a step and thinking and breaking down the obstacles as best you can. Each person dynamically, they bring something useful in that sense. So it makes the crew chief's job a lot easier.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because as an individual runner, right, like you're going to manage and I've never done anything, like this before, but back when I was in the military and going through some specific training, you did a lot of long distance running, a lot of trail running. And as an individual, right, you just you ride the runner's high when you get it, right, and then you push through the lows when those are there, right, and then you're just doing whatever you can to get to that next high. But like now, you have to kind of get on a cycle, right, with the rest of the team. And then because this is so long, and because it's so dynamic, right? Like you got to be ready for injuries. You got to be ready for all of those things that you're not just managing for yourself individually, but that you're also understanding that you're a part of a team. And everybody here has been a part of a team, just never been a part of this particular team doing this particular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned, you mentioned earlier that we're all doing something contributing to something that's bigger than ourselves. Like, what does this race mean to you? Like, as you see it from your vantage point, what does the race mean to you? And how does it fit within Team RWB's mission? And then how does it fit within that military community, the veteran community, and also bridging that military civilian divide that we've unfortunately experienced in the country?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I can give a true description until afterwards. It wouldn't give any of what's about to happen any justice. But I signed up because it gave me a different purpose to how I was going about my own fitness and my mental fitness, and they go hand in hand. But yeah, it brought back. I took count of RWB about 9 or 10 years ago, and I lost my purpose of how and why I was doing the things that I was doing, like I said earlier. And this kind of reignited that, and it's pretty cool to be going through this timeline in my life, and it's not coincidental. Yeah, I that's the only thing I can say.
Are you willing to talk more about that? Like how has it, what were you experiencing before, and then how is it different now?
Yeah, I was running away from things. That's a huge misperception, especially with running. And I got caught into that after I got med boarded from the military, and I was running for a different type of pleasure. It like I would break myself so that I wouldn't feel the other types of pain feelings that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my quick fix medicine. And again, I it wasn't even running that helped, but it was the more medicinal part behind it was being outdoors. And like I said, I lost that after I got out of the military, and I picked it up here and there, but honestly, it's because of the groups. It's because of the camaraderie that I felt or that I wasn't feeling at the time. And with RWB, it's brought that back. It's brought back a sense of purpose and camaraderie. Um, I'm 40. I'm about to be 41, so it's a different chapter in my life. I think this is a perfect opportunity to take advantage of that. So I'm willing to do and bring whatever I can to this effort.
I appreciate you sharing that. There's, a lot of, we can take good things and make them bad as humans, right? Like there's not only is there nothing wrong with being physically fit, being physically fit is a good thing. But it's back to the dichotomy that you were talking about earlier between the what and the how, right?
Yeah.
So if the what that you're doing is performing elite physical feats, but the how you're doing it is by breaking your body down and breaking your mind down and trying to numb yourself from other things that you're feeling that you don't want to feel, then that good thing becomes not so good, right? And we put things into specific buckets and we put things into specific places, to separate them and to separate ourselves from ourselves and to separate ourselves from each other.
Mm.
When in reality, right, like this transition from service to civilian, whether you choose to get out after 4 years like I did, or you were med boarded out like you did, or any of the myriad ways and reasons that people get out of the military, we miss that reintegration, not just that reintegration into society and culture, but that like reintegration into ourselves, right? And into the community. Yes, the veteran community, but then also, the community at large. And if it's not an integrating force, whatever it is that we're doing, if it's not integrating, it's disintegrating, right? And it's keeping ourselves separate from ourselves and then from each other too.
Yeah, that's funny you say that too, because I think I even have it on my social media, but veteran is at the end of how I would describe myself. And so even with my transitions with that, I kind of had the military on the back burner and I was doing more stuff communal. And with this event, like I said, I experienced my own growth with that. And now it's time to give back to exactly like what you're saying. We have a sense of purpose and we get lost along the way, but bringing that stuff back out of the veterans, it's very crucial in their transition point. It's something that's missed. Nobody teaches how to do that.
Yeah, which I actually think, ironically, is a good thing. That the DoD doesn't teach us how to do that, because I don't think the DoD can. Right? Like I think the DoD's responsibility is to fight wars and defend the homeland. I don't want that military institution that is focusing on the things they need to focus on.
For sure, yeah.
No longer a part, helping me, right? That's people get pissed off when I say that, and I don't care. I can take it, and it's a conversation I'm willing to have, because I'm sure that I'm not wholly correct on every aspect of my opinion. I'm just a person like anybody else. But this is where we learn that, right?
Yeah.
Through community, through connection, through conversation, through the practical skills that we get from each other. Because Roel, the way that you do things is not the way that I do things, which doesn't mean that I learn everything from you and I take and do everything exactly the way that you do it. But it means that through community, through communication, through relationship, we're able to understand different things about different experiences. And I can say like, oh, interesting. I'd never considered that before. Let me dive a little bit deeper on that and see if that's something that I can integrate into the way that I'm doing things. And then just being together,
Yeah, that's cool that you say that too, because that's almost 90% of how each of these individuals that are on this team are.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so you guys just came out of a weekend at University of Health and Performance, UHP, big sponsor of the event, big partner for Team RWB, doing that dry run. What does the next 8 weeks look like as the team gets ready to prepare for the Old Glory Ultra Relay?
Yeah. This is where they're putting the hay in the barn. They're cranking up the mileage, hopefully, so they can really appreciate how those 2 weeks, 18 days are going to go, because they're going to average a span collectively of like 90 to 100 miles a week.
Yeah.
Some of them even a little more than that. and it's interesting to fit that into the integration and the rotation of each team, each individual. But yeah, this is where they hunker down. They realize what they signed up for is bigger than what they signed up for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far the logistical part, that's still a complete nightmare. One being because it's so big and we have a lot of help and sponsors, so we have to shake babies and take pictures and all that stuff. That's just a funny joke I like to say, but it'll get what the mission, it'll get the purpose of this behind, which is it's bringing health back. It's getting America healthy again. So the training, I have no doubt the athletes will put more hay in the barn. Honestly, it's just spreading more of the awareness on this mission and getting more people to jump on board.
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to about this event?
The joy that everybody else is going to talk about afterwards, individually, collectively. They're going to have, each person is only running for 2 hours out of the day, maybe a little more. The rest of the time, they're going to be taking in parts of the country that they've never been through. And I've been experiencing that my last couple of years. That's been a huge eye opener because we really have a lot more in common than what we think. So to see each individual talk and experience that after the fact, that's what I'm looking forward to.
I love it. It's a great answer. It's one of the coolest things about this event. You look at the map, right? And just look at it, it's just going through so many different parts of this country. And obviously we think about it cinematically, right? Because we're making a film about this. And so we're very excited to get all those different landscapes, right? Big cities, rural towns, small town main streets. We're going to get plains, deserts, forests, hills, flatland. We're going to get all of it. And cinematically, it's going to be beautiful, but it's also extremely representative of the country and the people that all the runners are representing as they do this together. And it couldn't be happening at a better time.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. I want to be respectful of your time. I want to start to kind of wrap things up here. Where can folks find you on social? We're obviously going to, link out for Team RWB so folks can go donate to the cause, either collectively or pick a runner that they want to donate to. But where can folks find you?
They can find me outdoors. The social media stuff, Not Your Average Row on Instagram. And then look on the Team RWB link on the website. They got all the juicy stuff on there.
Awesome. Well, Roel, you know that I end each episode of the podcast with an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, something today. But Roel, with a fighter jet in the background,
yeah, no kidding.
You're probably close to Lackland. What's on your heart? What's on your mind?
I'll let people hear some of it. This is Military City, USA. On my heart and mind is just give yourself some understanding, give yourself some time, and just listen to people. I think that's what I have on my heart right now.
I love it. And I love that sound. I miss that sound. People always make the joke, oh, it's the sound of freedom. It is, because you guys on the ground, right? Like we always, we always used to say when we loaded those bombs, like we were supporting the guys on the ground, right? Like that's what we always said. So, I think a lot of people back home would say, oh, the sound of freedom, and it is, and it's cool, the air power and going to the air shows and like hearing all that stuff. But a lot of times for you guys on the ground, like that was the sound of freedom because we were able to bring some firepower and bring some air power to the battles that you all were fighting there in the mountains, Afghanistan or in the cities in Iraq. So it's a joke, but it's also rooted in a deep truth. And I personally miss that sound because I worked around it, every day for 3+ years as I was doing my job. So Roel, appreciate your time, appreciate your energy. Really appreciated getting to know you. Excited to get out on the road with you and the rest of the team and tell the story.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
All right, brother.